Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. This is the Afterglow Live Recap Podcast. My name is Syya.
And I'm Erin Gregor.
And we are back for another Friday recap of Brian Moran. First and foremost, before we talk about Brian, though, we want to welcome our friendly GLO member from Denver, Colorado, Mr. Travis Hart with Wealth Strategies. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so you are actually a new GLO member, and we always love to ask, first off, welcome, but why did you join GLO?
Great question. It's interesting as a leader of an organization, you're always looking to connect and network with others that are in similar roles. And, in my industry, it's pretty common that we connect with others in our industry. And I feel like it's a better opportunity to also add to some of those relationships, people who are, holding, again, similar roles and responsibilities in other companies that are outside of our industry, because otherwise I think, we run the risk of getting stagnant if we kind of stay inside of our own boundaries, right?
Right. Totally. And I appreciate that. So we always thank you and appreciate you joining the family and the community. So let's talk about Wealth Strategies. Help me understand what exactly is Wealth Strategies.
So Wealth Strategies is a firm, based out of Colorado. We cover a number of states, kind of in the Midwest, if you will. And we focus on working with, individuals, families, and businesses, and helping them essentially plan for the expected as well as the unexpected when it comes to their, overall financial picture, by really introducing them to what we refer to as comprehensive financial planning.
Okay.
Every situation is unique, so it's important that we kind of focus on our mission, which is helping people financially produce and support a good life for the rest of their life.
Do you focus on business owners or anyone in general?
So we have different teams. Some of our teams focus on the business owners themselves, and others focus on individuals. But on the business owner side, a lot of times they end up getting into individual planning as well.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, I can imagine a lot of our GLO members, A, could get some great advice from you, and B, I think it sounds like you're just a wealth of information in general to share. So I really am glad to meet you, because I might hit you up, my friend.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Cool. So I may hit you up within 12 weeks. How about that? Is that a good
That's perfect.
lead into our topic? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
well, guys, why are we here this week is to talk about Brian Moran. He is an author of the 12-week year, and he had some great insights. So, Erin, what did you think about the concept of the 12-week year?
So I really appreciate it. I had read this book a while back and had talked about it in extensively with people. And I know there's other programs out there that really focus on that 90-day type planning. And I appreciate it from the sense of, like he mentioned yesterday, there are things, yearly goals are great, but sometimes it's almost too far out. And being able to plan at that level, you can lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish. You can lose sight of that goal very easily. And sometimes it can be very frustrating when you're not getting the small wins. Like it feels like the hill is much bigger than it needs to be. So I really like the 90-day perspective. And I was so glad just to have the refresher yesterday. Pulled up the book again so I could go through it and really focus on that. I like what he said, like really be clear of the vision. And I think this is so important, especially for business owners. We hear of the billion-dollar exits, right, of companies, and not every business owner wants that. They don't want to build to that. They don't want, and so it's about getting really clear about what your vision is, where you want to be, what balance do you want with family and life. And it doesn't have to be even a business owner, but anything, and really focus, okay, what can I achieve in the next 3 months versus year? And how can I break that down at a scale to achieve that? I think one of the most powerful things he said is what you do I can tell you what you'll achieve and what you'll accomplish in a year or 2, 3 years from now, based on what you do on a daily basis. And I think breaking that down to those minute details is so important, yet something we overlook too often.
I agree. I agree with that. Travis, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest shift, going to this kind of quarterly mindset or breaking it down into smaller bites, was kind of initially kind of what my training and thoughts had been in the past, but really helps avoid that kind of end of year like procrastination, like you've got more time, and you get to October and you're like, oh crap, we better turn it up a notch, right? And I think those little bite-sized pieces that help you kind of celebrate along the way is really what kind of I think the big takeaway is when you really focus on this quarterly or 12-week kind of thinking.
I think, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I guess, and so we were talking about this a little bit earlier. So you guys, I might be the one person that you guys are just gonna have to keep pulling me off the cliff. I mean, as a corporate tech salesperson working for multi-billion-dollar companies, all I lived was a 12-week year. And I had the counter experience where it was a massive beatdown. Every single day, every week we had calls, pipeline calls, forecast calls. And though I think it's needed, obviously in sales, you have to have some kind of metrics and cadence. I'm not quite sure sometimes it was executed in the way that the intentionality of it could have produced better results. So when I say I have PTSD from it, no joke, I kind of do.
Well, and I think what sucks about corporate sales is I feel like you're always set up for a no-win situation. If you knock it out of the park, your goals get harder, and your goal, like, it's like you never can celebrate it because it's like, oh, you did that, so double it your next 90 days. Or if you didn't achieve it, you could lose your job the next day. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a no, you're never going in at the end of 90 days feeling accomplished and good about what's about to happen. Because either you're going to get pooped on either way you look at it. Right. And I just think that's why it's not fair, that it's got such a negative piece to it.
It does. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I think one of the points that he made that he said right off the bat, and I'm sure he's gotten the feedback, let's be honest, because people like me, there's tons of me out there. There's a whole great group in LinkedIn that, that follows it. But it was he said, start with your vision. And he says, starts with your personal vision. In essence, it's your why. And I think that is something that, as now that I'm putting my, business owner hat on, we have to remember that we all have our personal motivations to do things, why we get up out of bed in the morning kind of thing. And I thought that was such a great bit of advice, because 12-week year is a very tangible, very concrete, measurable type mentality. But if you don't have the emotional fuel to achieve that and execute it, I think that's where a lot of people fail. And I really like that he mentioned that. Do you guys think that matters, knowing that why and having your personal start vision?
Travis, I'll let you answer first.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know Erin mentioned that in the beginning, and I will tell you that I do think that's a disconnect a lot of times. We tend to set our vision that's tied to the business, right? But what is that for? And so I like that he really brought that to a personal connection, because if you remember why you're doing it, it definitely changes things. And, frankly, I think it, like you said, it's a different thought process as coming from the business owner side versus the person who's living it on the sales side. And sometimes that's driven by the leadership, right? So, a negative experience is not uncommon in corporate America, because, if they see that you can do X, they're going to move it to the next higher level, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you really break down each quarter with its own, intentional objectives, working towards a common objective, that I think that's more palatable. And I think again, Erin said this, that, being able to celebrate those successes, right? Or being able to make minor tweaks as you move into your next 12-week planning, right? Because it's no different than if you fail short in your year, next year, you're not necessarily trying to make up for the first year. You're setting a new target, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what I like about the 12-week year perspective too is and I'll speak from experience here, I will set goals. I will set plans. I will be connected to a why and a vision of what I'm wanting. But then stuff happens, and especially, from a business owner perspective, you get in the muck of it. You get in the difficult part of it. You get in the stuff that isn't as fun, and you can lose sight of why you started this in the first place and, what you're trying to achieve and accomplish, where if you're not in that constant reminder, it goes. And, I wish I could sit and say, well, anytime I'm sad, I just remember to go to a thing and read my why and everything's okay again. And, that's just not the way it goes. And so it's good to have that 12-week reminder versus the year perspective of when you'd visit and go back and have that as the top. Because, okay, you didn't achieve a goal. What were you doing? Why? Or you did achieve a goal. All right, fantastic. Connect that back to what you're trying to achieve. And it's just that, I know for me, I need the constant reminders.
So I absolutely agree as well. I mean, I had the fortunate opportunity at one point to go from 12 weeks to an annual quota for the last few years. And it was interesting because I went from that every 12-week, quarterly stress to, no, you haven't. I went the opposite route that we were talking about, that most people look at, I have a year goal. How do I achieve it within those quarters? What I noticed, though, was a combination of both. And I'm wondering if there's a good value to that. So, Travis, you had mentioned in our previous conversation with each other that there is the, the EOS that you were talking about, right? The Entrepreneur Operating System. That methodology of having that 1, 3, 10-year goal, and then breaking those down into extracting it down to quantifiable, monthly goals. Right. I'm not quite sure. I don't read EOS, so I got to read up on it apparently. But I found ourselves and our team breaking it down to, we did we still did 12 weeks of goals and objectives. It did feed into a 6-month checkpoint. That 6-month checkpoint allowed us to adjust the last remaining 6 months for that year, to achieve that year goal. So do you feel, guys, that 12 weeks is the, I don't want to say at the end all, or do you see a combination and blending of the 12-week year combined with a year planning and a 3-year goal?
Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I don't know how you can't. I mean, I think somebody asked the question in the interview about, how do you kind of merge into this thinking? And he said it takes time and it's not easy. I think as a business owner or an executive of an organization, there's no way to really avoid having annual objectives. I mean, the world lives on annual cycles. And so the question is, can you kind of carve that up and really have, smaller focuses by, smaller increments of time that help you get on track or ensure you're on track to achieve those objectives. And I would say yes, because if I look at, you don't have to go very far to look at, an interesting year, what 2020 was, right? Anybody who started in January with a big objective for the end of the year, come March, they were reevaluating their objectives. And so if they were, really kind of carve that up by quarter, it's a little easier to kind of reframe your thinking and adjust as you go along. So I would say yes. The combination of the two, I think, is probably more practical and realistic for most organizations.
And I would agree. I think with the power of the 12, you have to have bigger goals than just what I can accomplish in the next 3 months. I think what is so beneficial about the 90-day plan or 12-week, whatever we want to call it. Somebody else calls it 90 day, but is that it's that breakdown. And you have to look at it. And what I thought was so interesting too was a year seems we have all the time in the world, but then we don't, right? So we can kind of get stuck in that, where if you really focus on just a few things in those 3-month increments that will lead up to that year goal. I love what he said too. You can probably accomplish a lot more. Many times they accomplish a lot more than they realize they're going to. So, but it's that hyper focus. It's that, we talked last week, sometimes it can just be so overwhelming, a long list of tasks, and looking at all those years' goals can be extremely overwhelming which we all know what happens to most people when they're overwhelmed. They just shut down and they don't do anything. So it's taking those into bite-sized chunks and actually can move the needle forward. And we all know when you see a needle moving forward, it builds that momentum, and it's easier to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing versus I'm overwhelmed, nothing's really happening, this is hard, I don't want to do it anymore.
Absolutely agree. It's funny, you just reminded me of this is something that I've done, and I maybe call it out of habit. One of the things that tactically I do is quantify. Again, my background's in sales, so permit me this is, let's say, for example, you have $100,000 quota. I'm just throwing out numbers for simplicity's sake. In a 12-week in a 12-week mentality, you basically have to sell 8,300 a week in order to achieve that number. And then you just break that down. So what it means though is if you're having conversations with potential clients or you're doing work that's not revenue generating, it makes you realize, is this worth $8,300 a day or whatever? I screwed up the numbers here, but is it worth my time to be doing this? Right. And I think that's one of the things that like helps. And that's just a metric because I was in sales, but it could be any other thing. Right. That helps us keep in line of, are we doing the right thing in the right task? Because I am guilty of this, you guys. I don't know, raise your hand here. Is if you get excited about something, do you find yourself going off on a tangent and doing like a special thing that may or may not result in revenue, but it's fun and it's exciting, right?
Of course.
And I think that's some of the tools that he's trying to hone in on is recognizing that the activities that you do today, if it's something that you can feed towards that 12-week goal, you will most likely achieve your annual goal as a result of it. And I thought it was fascinating. He said, what did he say? If you just do 70% of it, most likely you'll achieve it. 70%? Right. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Why aren't we hitting 70% then, guys?
Well, but it's again, you've got to be that constant reminder. This is like, so interesting to me. I saw this post and it's just like stuck $10,000, right? And I know, but just to break down $10,000 is like $27 a day or something, like $27.47 a day. So from a wealth strategy building perspective, I want to say, like, just imagine, to your point, Syya, if I'm about to go out to dinner, like I can't save money, right? Well, I can't save money or I can't make money or whatever. I'm about to go out to dinner. Oh, my bill is $28. I could skip this dinner, go home and eat. And if I do that every day and make that decision every day, I've got 10K in the bank at the end of the year, right? And so it's that same perspective, but days happen, things happen, you're tired, the kids, I'm going to go, go get them to a restaurant and food. So it's like, how can you position yourself to be in that constant reminder of those goals? Like you said, I want to run and go do this. Does this, I got to bring me back in. Does this generate money? Or is this something I should move forward with? And being able to analyze every situation from that perspective and be intentional. And, whether it's money going out, whether it's time going out, whatever that is, be intentional. How does this increase, or how does this take me forward to where I want to go? Does it, or does it take me back? If it takes me back, it's got to come off the table. And you have to but again, it's that intention. And we all lose that because we get excited or we get busy or we get tired, whatever it is. We don't take that moment to say, all right, what are my goals? What should I be doing? Okay, I should do this or I shouldn't do this.
Right. Or extrapolate even further as we are all entrepreneurs and leaders. What can we delegate it to someone else if that isn't where we should be doing, right?
100%.
If you've got a teammate that could do it at a different, at a fraction of time, cost, performance, etc., is that when you have to start walking away? That's funny. I just had a mastermind meeting yesterday morning talking about the exact same problem. So Travis, so if we're looking at this and looking at goals and the tactics around it, how are you applying it for your business, or how have you applied it for your business, or how will you, I guess?
Well, I think where we've found success in this kind of concept, again, more EOS based than 12-week plan. I mean, and again, there's just slight nuances that are different, but is having kind of that scorecard that's focused on that quarter's objectives. And in EOS, they have rocks that are, any projects that are outside of your normal responsibilities. And so usually those rocks are things that you complete in that quarter to kind of move the ball forward towards, again, getting to that end goal. Because, most sales industries, I think, like I said in the beginning, get to this place towards, midway in the year when they realize they're falling short, and all of a sudden they ramp up and kind of turn on that momentum, and it's harder to catch up. And whereas if you really focus on those, that quarterly checkpoint, you kind of know where you are, you can make those adjustments for the next quarter. And again, a year like last year, like our Q2 planning was totally different than what we would have expected from when we started in Q1, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to make a whole about face, figure out how we're going to go virtual, all these things that we needed to, address. But yet that was tactical, and we knew kind of when we were having success along the way. So I think, he talked about being accountability, and not tying it to negative consequences. Well, having kind of that weekly check-in where you're talking about your scorecard and everybody's like reporting on what they're responsible for tends to keep people more on track. I think the risk is, as a leader, you've got to make sure that, you don't go from one quarter, because, I liked what he said when he said that, you could probably achieve more than you set out. But I think that's also dangerous, that if you say, okay, the bar is here, you're going to end up like you were feeling that, okay, the next quarter, like, gosh, we accomplished way more than we thought we would in Q1. So now let's make it a much bigger goal in Q2. That's dangerous for sure.
Especially when you didn't buy into that jump in your quota.
Totally.
Yeah, I think what's better, like as a business owner, you can either make that decision and say, okay, did I just, did we get lucky, or not lucky, but, was this kind of a fluke from this perspective that we were way over to achieve this, or did we shoot too low, and do we want to shoot higher next time? But have that self-awareness, or were we more available in Q1 and now either, we know Q2's got some different priorities or whatever. And so, but at least being able to be realistic about what just happened. And is that something you want to really push yourself and kill your team? Will it kill your team, or will it just setting the ball higher, challenge them a little bit, which is good.
I think if anything, the 12-week year showed us the value of it is the pandemic in 2020. If anything, to show that we need to stop and reevaluate our business. What makes sense? Is it still providing value to the current state of the industry or business or market that you serve? I thought it just kind of kept resonating with me of the value around what he's saying. And it makes sense. You can pivot faster, turn that ship faster, right?
Right.
So what other thoughts did you guys see on that? What do you guys think of him talking about holding accountable versus holding capable? So if you guys remember this.
Well, I like that too, because he talked about accountable really being that negative, like, I'm going to hold you accountable. You did wrong, versus capable. It's really, as a leader, it's not about micromanaging. Obviously, it's about laying out the path and guiding them and helping them along the way to achieve and walk down that path, not reprimanding them when they trip or veer off or whatever. So I really like that perspective.
The one thing I would add, though, that I think is important is that in order to have success in this kind of accountability kind of thinking that he was kind of referring to, is you have to have buy-in. It can't be a top-down, like, here's our goal and I'm holding you accountable to that. It's, hey, we have this objective and let's talk about how we can get there. What part can you play? And let them help create that kind of accountability. And it's easier to hold somebody accountable to something they committed to than it is something you told them to.
Oh, yeah. I think it goes back to that why, right? What is your internal motivation? And as a business owner, how do we tap into it in a way that we respect their motivation, right? And leverage it to further everyone's goals, not manipulate, but maximize it. So there was a question in the VIP section that I thought was really good, and I just want to bring it up before we wrap it up here, guys, is why do you think it fails? Why do you think the 12-week doesn't seem like a lot of time, but why do you think we fail more often than not?
I just failed miserably on a eating plan. Like I was just, but I'm like, yeah, screw it. Like we got time. It's easier said than done. I mean, it really is easier said than done. And that's all you can say from a perspective of, again, if you are not waking up with that, that intention and that alignment, and why am I doing this? What am I doing? Even I love the weekly glow, but I would have been challenged, like, probably need to do a reset on Wednesday and make sure you're still aligned with what, where are you? You said you were going to do this. What is that? We're human. And I think, in an ideal world, you should be able to set a goal and say, I'm going to do this, and any goal, right? And you lay it out. It's simple. It's very achievable. It should be achieved. Why isn't it? Because we've got our own crap to deal with, right?
Yeah, I don't think anything. I think there's some things that don't change regardless of whether it's annual or 12 weeks. And it's, how committed are you to it, right?
Right.
And, if it's that important to you, you're going to make it work. And so I think that's why, going back to getting the buy-in, people have to buy in to be committed to something. And they'll do it if you browbeat them, and that's what, like, a lot of corporate America is kind of notorious for. Or you can lead them because it's something they agreed with. They fell, in love with the kind of direction or the vision of where we could go. But it really is it's commitment. I mean, again, going back to that accountability, it's understanding the consequences of your own choices, right? Doing it or not doing it.
Right.
So I thought it was really funny, and we're going to wrap this up here, but I loved his last statement was, you have to be uncomfortable with comfortable, meaning
no, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, I did it the opposite because I thought it was great in my head, maybe. Meaning, don't find yourself complacent. If you find yourself happy, fat, and full, then perhaps you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Because as you said, humans are wired for comfort. You should be uncomfortable with the fact that you're overly comfortable, that you're not, that means you're probably not pushing yourself. So I was taking a different tact on that. But either way, yeah, you should also find comfort in being uncomfortable as well, too, right? So having, like, standing on the edge. I think that's why we like what do you call it, as kids, right? We would run up and walk on walls, right? And just, like, teeter totter and all that stuff with their parents screaming behind you. And you're like, what? I'm only 10 feet up in the air. So there's some thrill and exhilaration in that. So Travis, it is such a pleasure having you, and welcome to the Global Leaders Organization crew.
Thanks for having me.
So for those that want to get to know you a little bit better and understand wealth strategies, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, Travis Hart, with Wealth Strategies on LinkedIn. And we have a website, wealthsg.com. And then if you want to give us a call, you can call us. Our main line is 303-770-9020.
Nice. And is there anything promo or anything else that you'd like to share news-wise?
Yeah, I mean, nothing specific. I'm not going to say anything specific to wealth strategies, other than, our biggest focus for everyone is just take action. I mean, when it comes to your financial planning, do something. If you don't have an advisor, find an advisor. If you don't know where to go, you've got our contact information. We're happy to help you, and I'll introduce you to somebody on our team.
Excellent. And do you have any parting thoughts on the 12-week year?
I would say I'd go back to kind of, it's funny, you talked about the comfortable and uncomfortable. I have on my wall written, get uncomfortable. And I think it is, we have to try new things. We have to be willing to, take chances in certain areas. But, when it comes to this 12-week year kind of concept, if you haven't, considered it or broken it down that way, it's definitely something I think you should consider, so that you're not finding yourself at the end of 2021 figuring out how you're going to catch up because you didn't kind of track your progress.
Love it. That's great advice. Erin, any parting thoughts for you or comment about GLO?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is all part of the GLO, which stands for Global Leaders Organization group. This is an international group with local chapters, as Travis is part of Denver. Syya and I are the co-chairs for Dallas. So head over to withglo, GLO.com. We're doing these Thursdays meetings every day. However, if you're a premium member, you get to come join us in the VIP room where you get direct access to these speakers. So definitely worth it. So hopefully you'll join whatever local chapter you are. And if you're in Dallas, we'd love to have you with us.
Excellent. And so every week, Global Leaders Organization does put on a free speaker series where you have the opportunity to listen to some really great authors, great business leaders, great entrepreneurs, great personalities, and communicate with us fellow GLO members. It is free to join for the free online sessions. And of course, if you would like the access to the member GLO page with access to capital, if you're looking for growing your business or seeking capital, just growing your community or connecting with one another, it's all behind there, or the marketplace, which is huge. Check it out. Next week's speaker is Jocelyn Mangan. She is going to be talking about, Jocelyn Mangan is the CEO and founder of Him for Her. And what she will be discussing is accelerating diversity in corporate boards, which is something that would be very interesting and embracing, how our society is evolving and constantly changing. So if you have more questions or want to look it out, check out withglo.com. And you know what? Shout out to Innovation Media Enterprises. That is Erin and mine's business. We are podcast producers, strategists, and production agency. So if you want to learn more how you can bring content either on video or audio through podcast medium, we're happy to talk to you about that. So on that note, everyone, another week is come and gone, and have a safe and happy, successful week ahead of you. Take care. And I am going to do this one more time. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend.